approaches for life drawing. Okay. So first thing is first, I want to discuss about a few artists and books that you guys might actually look at a reference. So one of my really, really interesting and cool artists is actually a Korean artist. He's really gifted in terms of anatomy, and if you guys ever listen to any of his videos, because he does give a lot of conferences, his name is Kim Jung-gi. If you guys ever listen to any of his conferences, he's actually not good because he was born good with drawing anatomy. He just became really good from practice. Okay, so again, his name is Kim Jung-gi, and he's a Korean artist, and he focuses on pretty much fantasy drawings without ever looking at a reference in his, whenever he's working. So pretty much he's done it for such a long period of time. It's just right in his head. That's his main focus. He does kind of illustrative, figurative, that has a lot of realism to him. It's kind of dark, some of his work, so definitely not, for like the shy eye, but it's definitely really, really sophisticated work. And if you ever want to just YouTube any of his conferences, super, super interesting guy. I wanted to go see him in LA once. Didn't have the chance to make it out there, but I have seen some of his paid conferences as well as just some of his open conferences. And he's a really cool guy. He talks about, always doodling with art, which is something I was just earlier talking with one of our students, Emma. And he just doodled forever and ever. He started getting formal training when he was in his teenage years. And then he just really focused on human anatomy and just practice until he almost became a gift. He doesn't need any type of reference. So I'm just going to go ahead and put I'm just going to share the screen here for a little bit. And everything that he does is pretty much from just kind of sheer imagination. So he has all these really interesting pieces. Again, some of them are pretty dark. Some of them are kind of whimsical. They're kind of interesting, but it's just how he has the gift of doing perspective and drawing and all these things. So when people ask him, and how did you become so good at drawing an elephant, a tiger? Because he also incorporates different animals. He just tells you it's practice. Because when he draws, he has no reference to anything, and he just starts. They give him a ink brush, and he just goes to town with him. So this is important because this is kind of where you could reach if you guys practice enough of your anatomy. So this is kind of the work. You guys could Google him. I mean, the name is up there. You guys could just kind of copy paste whenever you guys have time. Because I am going to use him a little bit as a reference because he does have a nice formal training. So I actually like to kind of go with him. And for those of you guys who wants to spend your best $7 ever spent, I'm playing around, you probably bought something pretty cool for $7. But this book is actually really fun, and it is a really well formatted anatomy book, but it is simplified down for artists. So take it like a language book. Most language books are going to be depending on what you need them for. If you guys need to become certified interpreters, you guys probably need to know how to write, read, and do everything with the language. If you guys want to become professors, you guys have to write, read, and kind of know the different books and different styles of writing from different countries. But if you guys just want to travel around the world, and anatomy is something that's second nature, it's just like a language. As long as you guys understand it, you guys could speak it and kind of converse with it very well, you guys could go the whole 9 yards and just do the whole thing. Or you guys could get a book like this one, Anatomy of an Artist or for an Artist, that actually simplifies everything for an artist. So you guys don't need to learn the muscle structure of every single small thing, and you guys don't have to you know, learn every single bone, but it does touch bases on how all of this works, okay? So this is definitely a great book. It used to be more expensive. I mean, most of the people who bought it a while back, it was probably like 40 bucks. Maybe there's a lot of them, I don't know, or maybe there's a newer version of it, but it's definitely a really good book, really fundamental. It's not crazy anatomy, and yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to work really well. All right. And just going back, so that's the artist that I'm going to use at the beginning. That is the book that we're going to be discussing. So one of the things that I want to discuss today is going to be very, very basic, okay? And this basic information derives from these guys here, okay? So what these are just simple studies of anatomy, okay? The part of anatomy takes time. That's something that I artistically could teach you in a longer course, but it's going to be strictly anatomy, strictly form. And that's all that we have to do for a couple of months. I'm going to try to kind of skip the anatomy part, even though I think it's really important. And you guys have to actually, or you guys actually want to touch bases with this in the future, or if you guys feel that figure drawing is something that you guys are interested in. And this is what a study of basic anatomy is. And he actually uses the book that we use all the time for drawing, that classical French book, the Charles Barth book. So he uses that book a lot as a reference as well as a foundation, okay? And that's more of what we're gonna be using today. We're gonna be using foundations for art. But if you really look in depth on how much he's looking into the anatomy, how much he's studying the movement of men, you know, the little important muscles that make sense, the you know, the structure of perspective this thing has for shortening perspective. So the viewer's actually looking at him from the top right, not always from a very flat plane. This is really important. I mean, and like I said, if you guys have 2-3 hours to kill during the week, and you guys just want to put like an hour video of him and a 30-minute interview of him, really, really interesting. And today we're going to touch base with something that has to do more with this, all right? So on the Google Classroom, I actually pasted a link of the model that I'm actually going to be using. You guys are actually more than welcome to click on that model. I'm not going to be using it because then you guys cannot see my screen over here, and also the screen of the model. At least I haven't figured that out yet. So just make sure that you guys open that window. Just keep it on the side, and you guys could always just go back and reference at what I'm drawing, okay? So I'm going to stop sharing this thing. I'm just going to go back to the paper over here. I already have the model over here. I'm just going to do, well, just going to do a quick share. That way you guys take a look at my model. See, he's already open on one of my windows. So I will have him in front of my screen. You guys could just open up a sub screen and just have him on the side, okay? So I'm going to stop sharing this thing. All right, so before we do too much work, we want to talk about basic proportions of the human body, okay? I'm not going to go into crazy proportions of the human body. I'm just going to go into the very, very basics. So what we're going to do, just real quickly, some of you guys might know this already. That's why I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I'm going to spend most of the time on talking about how we're going to make this figure be dynamic, how we're going to make this figure be fast, how we're going to make this figure possible if you guys only have 10 or 15 seconds to draw a person. So we're not talking about 10 or 15 minutes. We're talking about 10 or 15 seconds. And those are techniques that we use during our figure drawing classes on Tuesday night. So we're going to talk about those techniques, and you guys could always use them with your, like I said, friends, family, or whoever you're with, okay? So what we're going to talk about first is how to break the big body, which is, by the way, not that simple, okay? Because the human body is different depending on all of us. Some people look like they have super long legs and super long arms. That's because they do have super long legs and super long arms, okay? Some people look like they have shorter legs, shorter arms. That is because they have shorter legs, shorter arms. I have out of the ordinary long arms. They're like, I think they're like 4 inches on each arm longer than the average person my height. So my arms are like super, super, super long. And that's just something that you guys want to keep in mind, okay? That once this rule is abstractly in our brain, it's just an abstract idea. The rest is you guys practicing enough that it makes more and more and more sense, right? So what we're gonna do, and you guys could, you know, I'm gonna take a photo of this drawing at the end. You guys could print it out and just have them as your notes. But most of the anatomy books, in some way or another, they're gonna touch bases to this, okay? So what we're gonna do is right now, just for the head, I'm gonna make an oval. I'm always gonna square down my oval. I never like to do, the face to me is more of a square than it is an oval. So I'm just gonna make a really, really squarish, like starting with an oval, then square it off a little bit. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna break this into sections, okay? This is the most important part because the extremities, which are our legs and our arms, they vary in length quite a bit depending on the individual. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna do our chest part. So this line here would actually be like our nipple line right here. So that would be like our chest part, okay? Or our chest plate right here. That is what this distance is gonna be here. From this line to this line, we are gonna have our belly button right here. And from this line to this line, we are gonna have our groin. I could do a better drawing of this person, but I'm not gonna try to do a better drawing. I'm gonna try to keep this as a very basic, simple shape, okay? So I'm just gonna try to keep this as more of a triangle here. This would be your abdomen, and another square or another cube, if we're gonna think of this as a 3-dimensional shape, for our hip. I'm gonna try to give all my right side a little bit of depth, okay? Basically, that's the way I'm looking at the human body, just as a simple, and this is not traditional, by the way. This is more in the animator's point of view. This is not on the fine artist's point of view. In the fine art point of view, we use more planes, but I think this is much more comprehensive. Fine art just is a little bit more confusing, and we'll touch bases a little bit on that, but I want to keep it more comprehensive first, and later on, just a little bit more artistic, okay? So once we have this, we have the most important part of the human body, okay? Because from here to here, to get the rest of the body, we just double this side, okay? Remember, that's abstract thinking, but if I put my pencil on the top of the head and I put my finger on the bottom of the groin and I just double that, that is roughly the length of my legs. And I say roughly because this is made up person. It's like a fantasy person. So once we have this, there's some few things that we can do. Like if we do another head and another head and another head, it should leave us roughly about the same distance. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 heads. 1, 2, 3, 4 heads. It should be, that's the distance that goes roughly. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here we go. Sorry, I had this weird. And what happens is our thigh, I'm going to treat it as a cylinder right now. Okay. It's just going to be a pretty simple cylinder. Our kneecap, which is a whole big structure, okay? The kneecap is not just like the little ball that has no distance. Usually ends on this line right there. Okay, so that ends at the second head coming down. 1, 2. Then over here, we have our calf and our lower leg. And then finally, down over here, we have foot, okay? And the foot actually takes quite a bit of space. It's not that narrow, you know, it actually is quite large. So it actually takes quite a bit of space. And I'm just gonna go ahead and do the same over here, okay? If we're gonna be doing something faster, which is the techniques that we're gonna be talking about, I'm gonna do a little change, and I'm actually gonna do that change in a second with my pen, okay? So what we're gonna do over here for the shoulders again are very different. You guys are gonna see some people that have super broad shoulders. You guys are gonna see some people that have super narrow shoulders, and they are actually not a huge difference. Usually our maximum that we wanna use is another head to the right and another head to the left. That is like, you know, Mr. Gym goer all the time, okay? That's the person that never stops going to the gym, has super broad shoulders and a super big back, okay? Usually that's another head. So we call this head number 1, and then we call this number 2 and number 3. If we break our body here, we have our first head, which is just right here for our head. Then we have this one, which is here for our chest. Then we have this one that's here for our belly. We have this one over here that's here for our groin. And then the one that's down here, it's more abstract. The only thing we're gonna say is that this is the end of our knee, okay? And this is the thigh and this is the leg. All right, usually our elbow ends where our belly button ends, okay? That's kind of like the final part of our elbow, okay? Right where our belly button ends. And if we lower this, our arm goes all the way to our groin right here. And then our hand, and our hand part, this part here, is actually quite long. We always think we have T-Rex arms, like super small arms, and they're actually quite large. If we open up our hands here and our arms, it's gonna be the same distance from our head to our feet. You guys can look always at that the Leonardo study of the Vitruvian Men. That talks about all that information, okay? So if we understand that, we have to understand that we don't have T-Rex arms, okay? If we had like little arms through here, you know, we couldn't do a lot of the things that we do. We just have super, super long arms. So in terms of understanding of the human anatomy, this is kind of what the artist is looking at. But this is really complex to follow if you guys wanted to do, you know, really quick studies. If you guys actually wanted to do life studies, all right? So we're gonna try to simplify this just a tiny bit, okay? So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna use my pen and I'm gonna try to simplify this and make this more accessible for a quick sketch, okay? So don't forget, if you guys are doing this very fast, this part might take practice, okay? Sometimes we leave too much space for the neck. Sometimes we leave too little space for the chest, you know, or we put the chest too low or the belly button too high. So that itself is gonna take a little bit of practice. But what I'm gonna do here is I'm just gonna go ahead and just throw a line for here. I am gonna throw my basic shape for my shoulders here. I am still gonna throw this triangle that I have here, and I'm gonna just go ahead and throw my cube there. And you're gonna see that when I actually start drawing, I'm even gonna simplify this quite a bit, okay? And from here, everything else is super simple. You could also turn the hip into a circle. I find that students find this a lot easier to have the circle. Just make sure that the hip is always roughly the same distance to the shoulders, okay? Even a broad person's shoulder, which is what we made, the shoulders are not that much bigger than the hip. Even a shorter, like a narrow person's shoulder, the shoulders don't go way in here. They just come a little inside, and by subtracting from both sides, all of a sudden the shoulders become small. But roughly, it's always aligned with your hip, okay? So once we have that, I'm gonna just do a few points, one for the arm, for all the way to the elbow, and the other all the way to the wrist, okay? You don't even need to do the hands, okay? And if you guys are gonna start the legs, don't forget that the legs don't start in the middle of the groin. They start on the outside. If you guys ever know somebody that had hip replacement doesn't happen like in here. It happens on the broader area, okay? So I'm going to push this down all the way to the knee. I'm going to push this down all the way to the knee. I'm going to push this down all the way to the knee. And I'm going to push this down all the way to the foot. Foot, foot, knee, knee. Okay? And you guys could leave yourself different spaces. That's up to you. But now, I wish I had like a blue pen. But now I have a simpler version of something that I could follow. So if I go just a little heavier with my ink, that way you guys don't get it confused with the graphite. You guys now have a very, very logical stick figure, okay? And this is much easier to understand how to do in 3D rather than having a super, super complex person that has muscle, bone, you know, all this stuff. This is a ton easier. This is just kind of like drawing 101, okay? So now that we understand how we could simplify the human anatomy, let's talk about approaches, okay? So I have I'm gonna pull up, if you guys want to follow along, okay? I'm gonna pull up the third pose, which starts roughly in minute number 2, okay? A little after minute number 2, we could look at the third pose of the guy that I pick. And I wanna talk about how to do a really quick gesture sketch, free of detail, okay? But very, very, very correct in terms of anatomy. It is not perfectly a replica of him. I'm not trying to do that, but it is very, very correct when it comes to how maybe this person turns out perfectly right, or somebody that's really, really, really close to him turns out perfectly correct, okay? So again, I already posted the model. You guys should have access to him. So if I wanted to do a little bit more of a structured drawing of him, that is very, very quickly, I'm gonna do this very, very much like I drew it on this left side. So I'm just gonna go in here, draw the shoulders, because you always wanna start with the shoulders and the hip, because they're the most important parts of the human body. From there, everything else is just an extremity. Okay, so from there, everything else is just an extra. Okay, and I did a really quick sketch of that guy that's kind of tilting to the, he's looking up to the top left. This took me no time. I mean, this took me like literally maybe 10 seconds. If I had 30 seconds to kill, like maybe I had somebody that was sitting in the park, maybe I went to the zoo. I usually give my animation students, I give them the exercise of having to go to the zoo, having to go to, you know, in here, Happy Hollow, having to go to a park and try to draw people that are doing something active that is not super, super fast. So if you guys had an extra minute or so, let's say I'm gonna set my timer. I'm just gonna give myself 45 seconds, okay? So if I had myself 45 seconds, I could start filling in this mass and just trying to get closer liking to this guy that I could later use myself for a painting, or I could later use myself for, you know, a class of some sort, you know, another figure drawing class. But I'm just giving myself just a few extra seconds to give myself the characteristics of this guy in a really quick sketch. I think I made his kneecap a little small, but I'm okay. It's my first drawing of the day. I know that. So it's gonna be a little bit stiff, okay? And that's it, just really quickly. I drew that guy, you know, not spending too much. I just wanted to get the big feeling of him, and any corrections that I have, I could do later. I wanted to choose this post because this post is quite dynamic. Mostly people who are doing this, they're not gonna do this for, you know, they're not gonna do this for hours on end. They're probably gonna do this for just 10 seconds or 15 seconds. So this gives me a good idea of how he's gonna turn out if I use that basic approach, okay? Still, if I push his shoulders up, so if this guy goes up, and then if his head comes up, I'm just gonna do a circle right here, okay? And if I measure this distance here, that is roughly the same distance as to the feet, okay? So the rule in its complexity is actually quite correct, all right? Again, this is not about detail. This is about how you would actually approach a drawing that you guys would see from life, okay? This takes time, this takes practice, but understanding the foundations of this is actually quite important. So I have another pose over here. It's gonna be pose, it's gonna be the second pose after that. So it's gonna be pose number 5. So if I put it up on the big screen, this is a very dynamic pose because it has foreshortening. It has a lot of different, you know, more difficult techniques on this one. Let me just show you on the screen. Let me put the zoom up. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna pick this pose here, all right? So this pose is actually quite dynamic, all right? And for something that's as dynamic as this, starting with that simple skeletal shape might actually be, you know, a little too hard, you know, trying to figure this out. So we're gonna try to see how that very, very basic stick figure could make this drawing here or this post here actually quite easy, okay? So I'm gonna stop sharing this guy here. I'll still have it on my screen, but you guys cannot see what I'm doing. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna see if I could use this rule plus techniques of Charles Bartsch, okay? So the Bartsch book that tells us how to draw angles. So I know my guy is shifting very much to the right, okay? I'm not gonna draw it too fast because I actually want you guys to understand this. So at this point, it's not about speed like I did this one. It's more about understanding, okay? So when I see this pose, this person is tilting to the I guess looking to the left. So his shoulders are a lot more narrow on the left than they are on the right, okay? So that part is out of the way. We understand that part. Now, his hip is actually pushing forward, okay? His hip is not resting perfectly straight. So I just went ahead and I did the spine, all right? And once I have that, I'll go ahead and I'll do the triangle here. And the triangle, I use my belly button. So this point is going towards my belly button right there, okay? That's how I'm using this triangle. Obviously, we know the human body has mass. I mean, we're not perfectly flat. We're in the front, we have width, and in the side, we have width as well. If the spine and the stomach were in the same place, that means that we were pretty skinny, okay? That like paper skinny, because something that's behind is in the same place as something that's in the front. That's why I did my spine a little further back, and I did my belly button a little further to the front. So now we actually get to see physical depth on this thing. So I got that out of the way pretty fast, okay? Now the one important thing, this is where we might actually start messing up quite a bit, is measuring our angles. And you guys could actually stick your pencil out here to see angles of the human body, okay? I don't do that a lot because I have a lot of practice. I draw quite a bit. But even when some poses are super complex, I will do that, okay? And what you wanna do is I wanna measure the angle of the arm that's coming out into space, okay? I'm not giving it a limit. I'm just doing that correct angle and just having it go forever, okay? I'm doing the angle of the right arm, which actually has a very subtle angle to a vertical line, but extremely, extremely subtle. And again, I'm not giving myself any reference, all right? In terms of how long should my arm be, all right? So once I have this, I want to capture some things, okay? In his case, his face is inside of his back, okay? Because he's looking down, the camera captures him from above, not from below. So he actually does have a neck. It's just a neck that we cannot see, okay? So what I'm doing here, I'm doing his back of his head and I'm doing the front of his face. Just real quickly, again, this is not that complex. It's just, we just have to remember not to always put the neck or the face in the body if the angle that the camera is capturing him is not showing any neck. Okay, remember that's what makes things look three-dimensional. All right, so once I have that, I'm gonna actually try to find that same angle that I see in here for the body. And this to me looks really correct, okay? Once I did the angle of the hip, that to me looked really correct. And once I pushed the other leg, I could actually do another angle here. And he's there, okay? Very simply, my character is there. And if I'll show you in the next sketch, I could do the same pose. And again, I could sketch it heavily in like 10, 15 seconds. And I could draw it precisely in a minute to a minute and 15 seconds, okay? So I just want to show you how my brain is thinking about angles. This might take time. This is me with practice, kind of repeating and repeating and repeating and repeating that I have to measure angles. I have to relate angles. I have to check where things are. If this slowly takes time, I prefer that this slowly takes time, okay? I don't want or I don't need this to take, 10 seconds if the concept is not understood. I prefer this takes 5 or 10 minutes understanding the concept and then speeding up the concept, speeding up the concept, speeding up the concept, okay? So what we're gonna do here, now that I have the big form in here, I could just come back and just go ahead and fill them in. I'm pretty much filling in the gaps. And these tights are kind of complicated because he probably doesn't have a belly button that heavy, but the tights are so tight they actually give him a belly button, or they give him a little belly. So that's making the drawing a little bit more complex than, let's say, if you were working from an actual, like a nude. Like the nudes are a little bit different and they don't have things like that. They don't have things like that, extra belly just because the shorts are a little tight. All right, and we know his back actually comes from over here. And remember that width that I discussed? This width is right here. That's the same distance. That's roughly from the belly button to the spine. It's pretty close. And also check, because there is foreshortening, this thigh perceives very short, but in reality, the thigh is not that short, okay? It's the foreshortening that actually makes it look shorter. And then the lower parts is actually quite long. Again, not because it's long, it's because of the foreshortening. Remember always what I tell you guys, draw with planes. So drawing with planes is drawing with these more square lines. I could later round these square lines off quite a bit, okay? But I'm not looking to do that today. or I will, but not now. I will actually do this later. So going a little slower, like I said, I'm not gonna have to rush all the things just to get the point across here. Okay. And all of a sudden, oops, I forgot this one. Sorry. All of a sudden, I have a really fair sketch of the pose of this guy. And I'm always simplifying, always as a rule of thumb for quick figure drawing sketches, try to keep the feet as socks and try to keep the hands as mittens, okay? That's what I always say. Feet as socks, hands as mittens. And that's pretty much what all of the anatomy books will actually tell you. The artistic anatomy books, they'll tell you for simple drawings, try to keep your hands as mittens and your feet as socks, okay? And if you guys wanted to sketch a little bit of the face, I noticed that my face is a little too high, so I'll lower it. I'm just gonna do a little line for the base of the nose, and that's it. I mean, it's as simple as that, okay? And again, the more time that you have, let's say this person decided not to move, okay? He's kind of in a weird way holding this kind of weird pose. So he's not moving. You guys are capable of later breaking in big values. And this will help you. I have one of my students who's actually, she's working on her high school portfolio. And these techniques, she's actually coming into figure drawing class, and she's using these techniques for her actual portfolio itself, okay? Whenever we are back in class, she'll draw a little bit, build up on these guys, but she doesn't need to, or not this guy itself, because I've never used him as a model, but she's actually using her figure drawing techniques in the actual class itself. Okay, and just mapping out my shadows here. That's it. I mean, it's pretty fun. This part should be just quick information of this. Oops, sorry. Forgot that there's volume on that cap. And all of a sudden, we have what we're looking for. A really quick three-dimensional sketch of an individual, okay? So this didn't take too much time. It did take a little bit more than this guy over here. But funny enough, if you guys start drawing more and you guys are drawing more and you're drawing more and more and more, later on this will look like that. And if you guys continue to draw, this guy is gonna look a little closer to the guy that we're gonna be doing next, okay? So the next guy is the same person, okay? The only thing is that we're gonna try to build up the very quick sketch to a little longer sketch to something that you have more time. And if you guys look at the New Masters Academy, the way their poses are set, they're actually time poses. So they're intended to be just like as a regular studio would be. So they're not poses that you know, they just stay there forever. One pose is 30 seconds. The other pose is a minute. The other pose is 2 minutes. And then the next pose is 5 minutes. Some of you guys, I know there's some adults in here as well. If you guys go into our Instagram, we promote our models that, you know, for obvious reasons, they don't have modeling gigs right now. The guilds are closed. They do Zoom modeling and Eventbrite and I don't know, some other kinds of events. If you guys go into our Instagram, you guys could see which models are actually active. I'm not doing anything, by the way. I'm not being part of anything. I'm just trying to help them, you know, promote while things are going the way they're going. So, you know, you guys could always take a look at them, join some of their figure drawing sessions, and it's the same way. They have 30-second poses, 1-minute poses. 2-minute posts, and then sometimes they'll just have one long 30 or an hour post. But yeah, this is all part of understanding figure drawing. So if you guys have the opportunity, go ahead and try to join any of those figure drawing classes. All right. So here we go. So we're going to work on our last post of today. I'm trying to pretty much work in increments of time. That's the big stuff that I'm doing. We're going to work on our last post of today, and we are going to hopefully you guys get to use New Masters Academy during the week. You guys get to practice the different poses and show me what you guys came up with. Okay, I cannot critique if I don't see work. Some students on a regular basis send me work, which is awesome. And some students, they don't, and it's okay. But I do prefer to see some of the work. And that way I could actually critique and help you with any of the stuff that we're doing in the studio. Okay, so here we go. So this post, I'm gonna treat in the same time period that I treated the other ones. The only thing is that I'm gonna give myself 20, or not myself, I'm probably gonna give myself 15 extra minutes to actually build up the drawing itself, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to spend, I'm actually trying to time myself. So I'm gonna try to spend 15 seconds on my first pose. So once this guy hits the 15-second mark, I'm gonna go ahead and start. So I'm just gonna take myself very short amount of time. Okay, so this time I am using my timer. All right, and that's it. That's all that I have, okay? And this might look like a mess, but to me, it's actually a very controlled mess, okay? I have my shoulders, I have my back, I have my hip, I have my thigh, my thigh, I have my calf, I have my other leg here, my knee, I have my, again, my front part of my leg here, my kind of calf area again, I have my foot down here, and I have my head over here, okay? And I did this in a very short period of time. This is not perfectly accurate, and if I were doing more figure drawings, let's say an hour from today, this would start getting a little bit more accurate, a little bit more accurate. But I'm treating it like if I was in a regular figure drawing class, okay? So now, I'm not gonna give myself a specific minute timer. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to do as much as I can in 15 minutes. So this is a very common pose in figure drawing. A 15-minute pose is a common pose. This guy took me about 10, 15 seconds, so I don't really count that as my 15 minutes. But if I have time, I'm not gonna elaborate too much. What I am gonna do though, is I am gonna structure a little bit more. So think about this as building a house, okay? You don't wanna start by building the fridge or putting the fridge in the house. You wanna start by actually putting the foundation, or maybe even before that, going to an engineer or an architect and trying to see what's up with your house, okay? So this is what we're doing right now. We're going to our engineer, we're going to our, our concrete department, having them throw concrete on the ground. So I'm trying to build up my drawing, and I'm not trying to go straight into detail, okay? That's very important, not go straight into detail. All right, so his head was too far back, but very little. Now I understand that. By the way, I'm drawing a little darker. Usually for this, those of you who work in my studio, I would be probably using H pencil, but I'm using a B pencil because people are having a hard time seeing even the H pencil, even the B pencil. So I'm just not using a H pencil at all, okay? So again, I'm beginning to build up the anatomy. My knee is in a really good spot. I really like the placement on my knee. So I'm not gonna I'm not going to change that. It's actually quite in the right place. I mean, perfectly in the right place. And I'm going to throw my mitten leg, or sorry, my sock leg, or my sock foot. And all these videos are going to be up. So you guys could, this whole week, go back, rewind, fast forward, rewind, fast forward, rewind, this entire week, and just see what, you know, if you guys miss something, maybe I missed something, and you guys have questions after that. So go ahead, you guys, and please feel free to get in contact with me regarding that, okay? So what I'm going to do, I'm pretty happy with most of him, by the way. You know, there are little differences, but in the bigger spectrum, I'm pretty happy. And figure drawing class, by the way, is super important if you guys are considering kind of a field in the traditional mediums. Like, well, fine arts is the traditional one, but funny enough, fine arts is not even that traditional anymore. It's actually more conceptual. But if you guys are thinking about pursuing any animation or illustration, or even applying just to like the big art schools, figure drawing is a must. It's like there's no going around that, okay? And that's cool. I mean, pretty much they want to make sure that they don't have to touch bases with you on the basic stuff. They just could start going into the more philosophical work and the more idea-based, which is what art is, by the way. Art, there's a craft part to the art, which is understanding this stuff here. And then there's the artistic part, the creative part, which is the philosophy part of things. That is actually idea-based, okay? So this fine art stuff this is not anything to do with fine arts. This has to do more like if you guys want to get an animation job and you guys want to work with Pixar, you guys want to work with gaming or any of that kind of stuff, which is really cool too, by the way. Some of the substitute instructors, like Sebastian, he works for industrial design, and he's a phenomenal artist, and you know, he gets hired for all these other, he works for Apple right now, but he's just a fine art major, which is really weird because he never had any type of major to do with engineering or architecture or industrial design. He was just a really good artist, and he got hired by Apple. So I guess they saw the cool artistic stuff in it. Okay. All right. So I just sharpened my pencil. So those of you who didn't see, well, nobody saw because I was having it on the other hand. So once I have this, I mean, I'm pretty happy. I'm still just 5 minutes into my drawing. Do you guys have any questions at this point? No? Yay, nay. All right. Well, if you guys don't and you guys see the video later, you guys could always just go back and just ask me whatever you guys didn't have the time or just forgot about, okay? Okay, so once I have this big structure, I like them, but I know I have enough time to give my guy characteristics, okay? And characteristics doesn't mean having the knee, or let's say the arm here, having the arm into 1 or 2 shapes. It means that you have to have the arm into 1, 2, and 3 shapes, okay? So the more time that you have, try to build up your drawing. And I'm gonna do that by also pressing harder on my contour line, okay? I don't like the angle of his back. If I don't like the angle of his back, I could still change that. These are things that are not set in stone yet. And I could change, not even by erasing, just by changing the hardness of my line, okay? So what I'm gonna do here is just come in. So I like the back. The back I'm cool with, I'm okay with it. I think the back is pretty accurate, okay? So I'm gonna start with the things that I'm happy with. And then I'm gonna shift over to the things that I believe need to have some work. All right? So I'm just pushing just heavier lines, some more detail. Okay. Here we go. So this is my first big change right here. The back, I feel could still have a bigger angle and a bigger angle. So this frees me up on, it kind of allows me to free myself up in two things. His leg was too short. So now I get to extend this kneecap a little further out and actually make it look accurate, okay? Before it was just a little too narrow. And I know what was wrong. That's why I'm okay fixing it. Sometimes students need to just step away from their artwork, you know, give it a little breathing room, go drink a coffee, go get something, you know, whatever you guys are into. And just give yourself some time. Just give yourself some new perspective. Usually if you guys are always stuck into your drawing, you guys never get a perspective. You guys are always just paying too much attention to what you already have and not what you guys could actually have even better, okay? So his head to me was too big, but I already did that change. I just did not show it in terms of, I did not show it in terms of the actual change in the human face. So I'm just throwing in a little slightly larger nose, straight but larger. Okay. So little by little, I'm doing his face, not any else's face. I want to make sure that he has a feeling at him. After 15 minutes, he shouldn't feel like his, you know, like he's just a random person. He should start feeling like he's him. I don't know who him is, but I just want to make sure that he doesn't look like anybody abstract. I want to make sure that he feels like this individual. All right. And just doing some quick sketch for the face. Nice, his face looks smaller, which gives me a bigger wiggle room for the rest of the picture. So now the stomach, I'm gonna pull in right here. The elbow, I'm gonna pull out, as well as the forearm here. And to me, one of the things that I haven't discussed, but it's one of the most uncomfortable things that I'm doing, is I'm actually drawing flat. I prefer to draw at propped angle. So I'm sitting, so I would prefer this not to be here, but for this to be there. But it's also very hard to record that way. It's a little harder for having the camera behind me and kind of not seeing if you guys have any questions or so forth. So for the practicality of things, I am recording flat, which sometimes I lose a little bit of the perspective. All right. And that could have been better, but it's okay. All right, so I'm just gonna go ahead and continue my guy. This arm was huge. Now it's gonna be more narrowed, which is actually more correct. And again, I'm running a little out of time. I have 5 minutes on my 15-minute marker. Again, with a lot of talking and a bit of pauses, but I still want to try to keep it on schedule. All right. Again, this is me drawing from live. This is not me drawing a drawing that I have time forever and ever and ever. All right, and Once I have this, and it feels weird because my line is much heavier than regular. Again, because I want to show you and I want you guys to see what I'm actually drawing and not have this on an abstract picture, okay? So that looks pretty good. Now this leg should go a lot further out. And by this time, my individual is actually quite well, okay? When it comes to sharpening up the lines, he's really good. When it comes to changing up the anatomy, I did a pretty good job in changing him, okay? At this point, if you guys wanted to show your muscle, you guys would want to start mapping the shadow, okay? So by mapping the shadow, I'm gonna start doing breaks in my drawing, okay? Shoulder, all right? Arm, biceps, or what do you call these? I forget the name of those guys. You could see how much of a gym goer I am. All right. And once I map in all my shadows, I don't even have to raise my incorrect stuff, which I never say it's incorrect stuff. I just say it's the buildup of your drawing. I'm not even going to have to raise that. I will just build from there, okay? So I'm gonna go pull. So whenever you guys have this, at this point, you guys could just start blocking in your hatching. And never block darker hatching. You guys know that you guys should build up your hatching. So always do consistent hatching. And if things need to be darker, then you do another layer. If things need to be darker, then you do another layer. If things need to be darker, then you do another layer. If things need to be darker, another layer, and another layer, and another layer. But remember, this I did in 15 minutes. This is if you're ever on an airplane, this is like flight luxury time when somebody's passed out and just, you guys could draw him because he's sleeping. This is like the right amount of time for somebody, or somebody's just watching the video, you know, they just got a new video on the flight. You know, this is like the perfect time to do these kind of drawings. If you guys are in the station, you know, you guys are going on the Caltrains, or you guys are going on the BART, or this were most of my BART drawings when I was living in the Bay, still in the Bay Area, but when I was living in the East Bay and in San Francisco, these would be a lot of my sketches. This would be a lot of my kind of fun time. So here his leg doesn't have a shadow, but it's actually so tan, it does feel like a shadow. So I'm gonna go ahead and make the value, okay? And then here he has another shadow. Don't forget to do cast shadows. Cast shadows are as important as your core shadows. Don't forget the cast are what's cast onto something else. The core is the shadow of the object itself. All right. So if I wanted to just build up this a little bit more, I'm theoretically out of time because I just hit my 15-minute mark from the initial part of my drawing to the now part. But I'm just gonna assume that my talking gave me a few extra minutes. That wouldn't happen in regular class. In regular class, once the model switches poses, that's it. It's a new post. Okay. But once I do this, that's pretty good. And my character looks like he has mass. It looks like he has volume. And it's very quick sketches, okay? These are, again, sketches for life, or for life, from life, but they're things that you guys can do when you guys have actual individuals, okay? If I wanted to build this up a little bit more, let's say I had some time, I would never go into my lights yet. I would actually try to push darker values. I would try to push the, first, some of the darker values that I see, which would be the shorts here. Hatch a little bit heavier with the shorts. Also, sharpen some of your contour lines right here. Sharpen some of the values over here. Sharpen some of the values over here to separate the leg. But everything that I would do if I had a tad bit more time would just try to go darker. Okay. This guy needs to have a cast shadow over here. All right. And that's pretty good. You know, I'm giving myself a cheating time. I have more, basically I don't have a model that says stop, but if this was just a 15-minute post, it would have probably ended somewhere around here. This is usually where my 15-minute posts end, looking somewhat like this. It also depends on the medium. If it's charcoal, I probably have a little bit more detail than with graphite, but it would end somewhere here, okay? So remember what you can do in 10 seconds. This guy ended up being like 10 seconds plus the minute just to fill in the mask. Remember what you guys can do like in 5 minutes, okay? And then remember what you guys can do in 15 minutes, all right? Build up your drawing. Same guy, same thing. If I had an hour or 30 minutes, I could really do a lot more to him. I could spend more time on him. I could actually, my hand is already loose. The anatomy of this specific individual would be already in my head, so I won't even have to think about how to make them too much. And it just so happens that, you know, the more you draw, the looser your hand and the better that you guys get, okay? So have fun with this guy. There's plenty of models on that website or on that YouTube channel. Take a look at them. Take a look at just how they're moving. If you can, try to keep the timer that they give you, and practice. I mean, practice is the best. I mean, that's what art is all about. And just get your ideas. If you guys do anything that's different, by all means, try to do things that are different and are fun. And yeah, have fun. Try to, like I said, keep the timer going. And if you guys have any questions, I'll take them now. If not, just go have fun, draw, and show me what you guys are doing. If you guys want to post them on the classroom, you guys could do them on the classroom. If you guys want to post them on the anything else, you guys could do them there too, okay? So go ahead, you guys. Have fun. Any questions?
I have a quick question. It isn't about the figure drawing. It's about the other Zoom meetings. So for the cat study,